Welcome to my YouTube channel on this lovely quarantine. My name is Deja, and as you can tell by the name of my channel, we are all things makeup and murder. I've actually had this research on the case that we are doing today done for quite some time, but you know, I have 82 kids and life, so you're getting a Easter crime in August. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on in. Our story takes place March 30th, 1975 in Hamilton, Ohio. So it's actually not that far from my hometown. It was a cold, cloudy Easter Sunday, and Charity Ruppert was excitedly preparing to have her eldest son, Leonard Jr., his wife Alma, and their 8 children over for Easter dinner. Her younger son, Jimmy Ruppert, would be there as well, but he actually lived with Charity at the home on 635 Minor Avenue. Now, before we proceed, I want to give you a little backstory, if you will, on the Ruppert family. So, James Urban Ruppert was born March 29th to Leonard and Charity Ruppert. He was their second son. They already had Leonard Jr., who was 2 years old at the time of James' birth. Charity desperately wanted a girl, and unfortunately it was a fact that she really liked to remind James of throughout his life, which I get it. He wanted a girl, not his fault. Don't blame him for it. So just not cool. He really didn't have a lot growing up. They had no running water, no indoor plumbing. They raised livestock, so he just really had kind of just a simple farm life upbringing, if you will. So his father, Leonard Sr., was a violent, short-tempered disciplinarian, and he really just didn't show his sons any affection. Like, he just wasn't an affectionate, their dad. Later in life, James would say that his father saw him as a failure, and vice versa. He saw his father as a failure as well. So just not a good relationship there. So, just slowly things that you see, honestly, and a lot of I don't want to say like serial killers, because he's not really a serial killer, but just, I guess, killers in general, just things that you see, they didn't have a good upbringing, it's not always the case, but in this case it is. So James developed really severe asthma at an early age, and he was, as well as allergies, and he was constantly ill all the time, which made farm life really difficult for him. And, he was actually so sick to the point he walked hunched over, and just being sick all the time, unable to play sports or interact the way that other kids did. Just really kind of took a toll on him. He just was really kind of a loner. Didn't really have any friends, no social life, no dating, nothing of the sorts. So, his classmates, and people that knew him would later, go on to describe him as, just frail and short, and, they kind of treated him as such. And, when you're in school, a guy, you don't really want to be described as frail and short. That's kind of like the last thing you want to be. And then especially with his brother, his brother was the complete opposite. His brother was handsome and tall, and the girls cooed over him. So I'm sure that added to a lot more frustration. So when James was 12, his dad actually died from TB or tuberculosis. And then his brother, Leonard Jr., became kind of like the man of the house, so to speak. Charity already favored Leonard because, as I said, he was tall, handsome, athletic, smart, everything James was not. And whereas James could do no right in Charity's eyes, Leonard could do absolutely no wrong. He was her golden boy. So you know, after, according to James, after his father died, his mother would regularly beat him and actually encourage Leonard, and we're just going to call him Leonard from here on out instead of junior and senior since his father's passed now. So his mother would encourage Leonard to, physically harm him as well. He said Leonard once beat him with a hose. He sat on him, locked him in closets, tied him up, and just tortured him, And so when James was 16, he ran away and he unsuccessfully tried to commit suicide when he had ran away. I could not find any information on if, he was committed to a hospital or, kind of what happened there. I didn't see that, so I'm not really sure what happened. So eventually both boys graduated. Leonard, he obtained a degree in electrical engineering, got a job at GE, and met and married the love of his life, Alma. It is rumored that Alma and James may have been a thing before this. That'll play in later. So they would go on to have 8 children, buy a beautiful 2-story home, beautiful 2-car garage, living like the stereotypical American dream. So James, on the other hand, he didn't finish college. He bounced job to job. He dated a lot, and he was engaged at one point, but his fiance called it off. Again, not sure what happened. But she just was like, I'm out of here. I'm not really into this anymore. So eventually, at some point, he trains to be a draftsman. And he works at a few different aviation places, but again, he can't hold down a job. So he became increasingly paranoid and thought that his mother and brother were consulting with the FBI, saying that he was a homosexual communist. Which, not really sure what the sexual orientation had to do with it. But okay. So he thought the FBI was tapping his phones to the point where he wouldn't use any phone, at all. No phones. It didn't matter if it was, someone down the street, it was his phone, whatever. He wasn't using the phones. So he thought that everyone was out to get him, especially Leonard. At some point he moves in with Charity and is living with her for a few months. And he began drinking really heavily and collecting guns, which, no bueno. Drinking heavy and anything, in my opinion, is just never a good idea. So, especially, collecting guns, just not a good thing for him to be doing. So the Saturday before Easter, he goes down to his favorite bar, the 19th Hole Cocktail Lounge. A woman at the bar that night would later testify that he talked all night about his family and financial issues. He had said that his mom was kicking him out. She had told him, if you can drink 7 days a week, you can pay me rent. Which I know that is damn right. So he drank all night and returned home about 2:30 a.m. So the next day, of course, is Easter Sunday, and the whole family is scheduled to come over. James himself sleeps till about 4 p.m. and Charity, Ruppert, she was downstairs making sloppy joes, which is a little odd for Easter, but I had heard that it was for the kids, so I could understand, because they had some older children, but most were younger, so maybe they didn't eat everything, so I wanted to make sure they had, something to eat. Once James gets moving, he gathers his guns and proceeds down the stairs. James later testifies that his brother mockingly asked him, how's that Volkswagen running? And if you remember, he thought his brother was out to get him, and he had been having some car issues, some car troubles. So he immediately, in his mind, of course that means he's sabotaging him. Like, yes, that confirms everything I've been thinking. He's sabotaging me. I'm not crazy, basically, is what he's thinking in his mind. So James shoots and kills his brother Leonard, his mother, and then he proceeds to everyone else. Afterwards, he sat on the couch for 2 hours, contemplating suicide, but decided against it because suicide is a sin. Because, mass murder is not a sin. That's okay, but suicide, definitely a sin. Not going to get you in those gates. Got it. So he changed his clothes. He tidied up a little bit. And then at 9:41 p.m., he calls the police. So the operator that answered, 911, how can I help you? He said, he's dead, she's dead, they're dead, and hung up. So to me, it's pretty ominous. I'd be like, what the fuck? I don't think I can cuss on here. Oops. So just be like, oh man, what is going on? So when the police got there, James was standing in the doorway. They could actually see the bodies as they approached the house. They asked James to step aside because he was, as I said, standing in the doorway. He was completely compliant, and he did as they asked. So, he stepped right aside. They went in the house. So inside the house, some of the deceased were in the living room. Some were in the kitchen. They said that Easter baskets were all around. And there was a big Easter lily and family portrait on the living room table. There were 11 victims in total. So his mother, Charity Ruppert, she was 65 years old. His brother, Leonard Ruppert Jr., he was 42. His sister-in-law, Alma Ruppert, she was 38. And then their 8 children, Leonard Michael III, he was 17. Michael Ruppert was 16. Thomas was 15. Carol was 13. Anne was 12. David was 11. Teresa was 9. And John was 4 years old. So just like, I have 2-year-old twins, so right around that age. Because I had seen somewhere else that John may have been 2, but I seen 4 more, but it was still just like, it's a little baby. Like, how could you do that? And it's your nephew, so it's like, they're just like, oh, Uncle James, it's so messed up. So here I'm going to insert a trigger warning just because, as I said, there were a lot of young victims. So the next little bit that I do describe, it is a little graphic, so trigger warning here. So one officer would later say that he seen little John lying on the couch in his blue corduroy overalls with a bullet in his head, holding a partially unwrapped chocolate Easter egg. So, quote, that was a sight that shook me to the depths of my soul, and I have never forgotten. All victims were shot in the head, except Alma, who was shot in the heart. So, if you remember what I said earlier, there's a little rumor that they could have possibly had a thing before she and Leonard were married. So there was no sign of struggle surprisingly. You'd think there would have been at least, after the first shot, how he explained everything was, you would think that there would have at least been some sort of sign, running, something, but other than an overturned wastebasket, nothing, no sign of anything in the house. That's just bonkers to me that there was just nothing. He used 4 weapons, two .22 caliber pistols, a .357 Magnum, and a .22 rifle. The pistols were on the living room table. The revolver was leaning. The revolver was on the arm of a chair, and the rifle was leaning against the fridge. Between all the weapons, they had been fired a total of 35 times, and somehow no neighbors heard anything. Absolutely nothing. And the houses, because I have looked up the houses, obviously, as I said in the beginning, not, where I'm from is not too far from here. So, I have, kind of been in that area. The houses are really close, like really, really close. So it's just, I don't understand how no one heard anything. Like, that's just, it's insane to me. So the community was completely outraged by the murders. Everyone talked really highly of Leonard and Alma and their family. They were really respected within the community. They were, they just looked at them as, good Christian folk. They were, doing what they should be doing. So the community actually posted local ads saying that they wanted to kill James, and they wanted to band together and kind of get like a vigilante justice, and get the sheriff to hand James over to them so they could kind of, take care of them on their own terms. There was actually another man as well, named Donald Ruppert, absolutely no relation, that got the brunt of the community's anger as well, just simply because of his last name, because he shared a last name with this family. They just automatically assumed, oh no, he's related, he somehow had something to do with this. Whatever. So he did not. Because of his last name, everyone just, automatically assumed he had something to do with it. He didn't know the guy, even people that he had worked with for years, were, turning on him, which is insane. He's like, guys, like, you know me. I don't know this guy. Like, I have no relationship. And they're just like, yeah, whatever. You're got same last name. No. His family started receiving threatening phone calls, dirty looks, and he didn't do anything. So he eventually had to change his name because, just like I said, even the people that knew him, I'd worked with him for years, are just like, nope, you had something to do with it. You knew that guy. And he's just like, okay, whatever. I had nothing to do with anything, but okay. So James was quickly charged with murder, of course, and he was questioned, but he didn't confess, which everything obviously pointed at him. His first court appearance, his attorneys asked for him to be examined by mental health, and once he went to trial, he chose a 3-panel judge trial rather than a jury trial, just because, if he would have went to a jury trial, no doubt he would have been convicted. So he chose a 3-panel judge trial, and prosecutor's defense was that basically he did it for the money. He would be the only family member left, so therefore the estate would go to him, because he's the only one left. So Leonard and Alma had an estate close to $350,000 at the time, which today equates to $1,732,965.35, which is insane. So he's found guilty. Great, right? Well, later in September of 1982, he appeals, and he's granted a new trial. So once he gets his new trial, in this new trial, he is convicted of 2 counts of murder in the first degree for his mother and brother, but not guilty by reason of insanity for the others. Because they're basically like, if you're going to shoot a bunch of kids, basically, you have to be insane. Nobody in their right mind could do that. So, can't say that I don't agree there, but I don't know. I do feel like there was a lot more motive. I mean, I don't know if I want to say financial motive, because he stayed there. It's not like he ran and he tried to go to a different country and, get away with it, or, something along those lines. Like, he stayed there, he cleaned himself up, but it's not like he tried to run and, really deny that he did the murders. I mean, he didn't plead guilty, but I mean, he didn't say he didn't do it. I don't know. So he's sentenced, he receives 1 life sentence for each count to be conserved consecutively. And because capital punishment had been suspended in the United States from 1972 to 1976 as a result of the Supreme Court's decision in Furman versus Georgia, and because the massacre on Minor Avenue occurred in 1975, Ruppert could not be given the death penalty for his crimes. Sad. I feel like he did deserve the death penalty. But I do want to be clear when I say that I'm kind of mixed on death penalty just in general, because there are, certain cases, certain times where it's like, do we really know if that person's guilty, and then it's like, if we're putting them to death for a crime that they are, or they have committed, if we're not, 1,000% sure they didn't get, fully caught red-handed, you're possibly putting an innocent person to death. But, in this instance, I support the death penalty. So as of December 2019, Ruppert still remains incarcerated in the Franklin Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio. In June 1995, at the age of 61, he was granted a hearing before the state parole board, but his release was denied. He received another hearing in February of 2015. And again, his release was denied. And his next hearing is set for February 2025, when he will be 90 years old. So, even if he does get out, how much, or if he's still alive at that time, how much life will he really have to live. And going back to what I said about the death penalty, another thing is, like, when it is an instance like this where he wasn't given the death penalty, but he did have to sit there in jail and basically rot, that satisfies me, because he's still, you'll hear instances about people where you know, they kill somebody and they get a slap on the wrist. And it's just like, really? Like, they you know, get to go to jail for 15 years or, you know, sometimes even less than that. And their family, you know, still has to deal with this loss every day. Their family, you know, doesn't get them back after 15 years. So why is it fair that this other person, you know, gets to go live their life after that time? So, a little food for thought. I don't know. So there are rumors that you can see blood and still see blood, like in the floorboards of the house. It is, the house is still there, obviously. You can see blood in the floorboards. There's a family that lives there. She actually did an interview a few years back, not that long ago. And, you know, she's like, you know, it's, everyone says it's, you know, the murder house, but it's like, it's my house. And it's like, it is, but it's the murder house too. So let me know what you guys think. Please like, rate, subscribe, you know, all that good stuff that YouTubers tell you guys. And give me more cases. I really like small town, you know, small town home murders, cases, missing, you know, anything like that. Stuff that I really haven't heard. You know, I don't really want the stuff that's, you know, mainstream. So if you live in a small town, there's a murder that you guys know of, please put it in the comments. I would love to look into it, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.